Hi, welcome to our channel. My name is Jessica Gray. I am the Data and Career Awareness Coordinator with Workforce Solutions Capital Area.
I'm Victoria Leonardo with Workforce Solutions, and I'm an outreach specialist for Pflugerville ISD.
And today we bring you a special guest from Skillpoint Alliance. We have Weston Saitoff. Hi, Weston.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. We're really excited about you sharing who Skillpoint Alliance is and what you do there. So if you want to kind of share who you are, and we'll get started with some questions.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Weston. I'm the External Relations Manager at Skillpoint Alliance. And what I do is I manage our recruitment and enrollment team, and I also manage our Student Success Coordinator. And then I also work to make sure that we have a good connection with local industry and with community partners and things like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're so excited you're here.
Thanks. It's really wonderful to be here. I know that the missions that Workforce Solutions has is pretty closely related to the mission that we have to get local residents to work in rewarding careers.
And for those who've never heard of Skillpoint Alliance, this video is for you. So Victoria and I are going to go through a series of questions that we're going to ask Weston, and our hope is that you will have a better understanding of Skillpoint Alliance and the awesome trainings that they have to offer.
Yeah, so I'll start it off. So exactly who is Skillpoint Alliance for those who don't know?
Yeah, sure. So Skillpoint Alliance is a local nonprofit here in Austin, Texas. We were founded in 1994. So we just celebrated our 25th anniversary. And our mission is to provide a gateway to sustainable careers for Austin residents. We provide short-term, rapid, full-time training to get people started in occupations that have a really strong and rewarding career path. And so our mission is really focused on specifically on getting people who have some barriers to self-sufficiency, whether that is poverty or someone who has been recently released from prison, or someone who's experiencing homelessness, anyone who's got some barrier to kind of finding a career. We are kind of the gateway to get them trained and started really quickly. All of our classes are a number of weeks in length. And so that is kind of our niche, if you will, in terms of workforce training.
Wow, that's awesome. How long have you been with Skillpoint?
I've been here for just over 2 years, just celebrated my 2-year anniversary at Skillpoint. Everyone here is really, really passionate and committed about the mission in terms of just getting people out of poverty and getting people to work in rewarding careers.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. So you said rewarding careers. So what programs do you offer, and how long are they typically? I know you said just a couple of weeks. I don't know if you can give us a ballpark number.
Sure, yeah. So the program that we've been running the longest in our history, which is actually kind of the program that we were formed to do in the 90s, is our pre-apprentice electrical program. So this is a 4-week program which is designed to get somebody started in the electrical industry. So it basically helps, it's kind of a pathway or a ramp, on-ramp, if you will, for someone who has no experience as an electrician but wants to become an electrician, wants to become an apprentice, and eventually a journeyman. So that's kind of, and we run that program also the most often throughout the year. So that is kind of our bread and butter, pre-apprentice electrical. We also have a pre-apprentice plumbing, which is similar in terms of its construction and content, except obviously for a different trade. It's for plumbing. And that one is also 4 weeks long. And then we have a HVAC technician, which is a little bit longer because when you talk about HVAC, there are certain regulations regarding refrigerant and things like that. And so it takes a little bit longer to teach all that. And that is typically about 7 weeks long. We also do a nurse aid training. So that's our one training in the healthcare field. That is 4 or 5 weeks long, depending on the construction of the class. Sometimes the instructor likes to do Monday through Thursday rather than Monday through Friday. And so in those cases, the overall length is 1 week longer. And then we also just recently started our first ever training program for the advanced manufacturing industry, and that is a certified production technician, or CPT program. And that one is kind of, we're still not exactly sure what the right length is for that because we just started it. This first class is going to be about 6 weeks, but we are investigating ways about trying to make that shorter. So it could be as short as 3 or 4 weeks in future classes.
That's
so
awesome.
They're receiving all of the certifications needed to become like the plumber or whatever they choose to
Exactly.
do.
And so for those careers that require some type of license in the state, so electricians, plumbers, HVAC techs, and nurse aides, those all require some type of license before you can go to work. And so we, as part of our admissions process, when we're working with an applicant, we get that process started and pay for the licensing fee for anyone. So, so we help you get started in terms of both the training, but then we also help with licensing and then certification. So as you mentioned, nurse aid, there's a test and an actual certification that you have to have before you can, give care to someone in a facility. Same goes for HVAC. I mentioned working with refrigerant. There is a federal EPA exam that you have to pass in order to work with refrigerant. It's called the EPA 608. And so we also help, from both of those cases, we help prepare and pay for the exam fees, even retakes, a limited number of retakes to help get those exams so that they can start their careers.
Wow.
Awesome. And you mentioned licensing, and I know some license require a criminal history, and we don't have to go through like the what's acceptable for each license, but I imagine your team is knowledgeable about what licenses someone would be eligible for.
Exactly. All of our programs that we train for, all of our careers that we train for are background friendly, but with some limitations. Like, for instance, as a plumber, there are certain types of offenses that you simply can't get licensed for. Same goes for HVAC, same goes for nurse aid, and they're a little bit different for each one. And you're exactly right, Jessica. Our admissions coordinators are kind of our in-house experts on what types of offenses are going to be allowable for a specific type of license. And so what we'll do when we're working with somebody who's interested is if they, we'll run a background check, or something we always do, just so that we can have a full list and kind of figure out where someone is coming from. And then we'll work with them individually and say, listen, it doesn't look like, based on your background, that you will be eligible to get licensed for this, but why don't we try this instead? And so we'll kind of work with someone to, we don't want to ever turn anyone away and say, no, I'm sorry, we can't help you. We'll work with them individually to kind of find out what career path makes the most sense for them.
That's awesome. That's really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of following up with that, so what jobs are available for individuals who receive the training, and do you have any like success stories from previous people who've come in?
I do, yeah. So for a couple of our programs, so I mentioned pre-apprentice electrical and pre-apprentice plumbing. Those really are geared toward somebody becoming an electrician or a plumber. It's a very clear kind of articulated pathway. For instance, someone who wants to go and become an electrician comes through our program, 4 weeks, full-time training. They will get to meet some employers during class. So one thing that we do for all of our programs is during class, we invite employers to come in. We call it industry mentorship, to come in and talk to students to tell them about all the different career pathways, to talk to them about, ways to be successful on the job, and then also do some recruiting and some connection. And so that when someone, for instance, with our both our pre-apprentice plumbing and electrical programs, which are very specific in terms of the type of job that you're going to be doing, most times, more often than not, all of our graduates have either job offers or interviews set up by the time graduation happens.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. And because of that connection that students get to industry early on, especially in those two programs, they are able to move up really quickly once they start. Now, both of those industries have a very kind of structured apprenticeship program. So you can't move up faster than the apprenticeship model it will allow you to. But what will happen is that our graduates tend to start off a little bit higher wage because of the extra training they get with us. They will also get to learn new things quicker on the job than someone without any experience. For instance, we had actually a woman electrician graduate who graduated just a little over a year ago. Her name's Rachel. She was a single mom. We were recently at a field trip at a site visit with one of our industry partners, and we happened to see her there. And she was actually running a crew that were installing lighting at a new office building. And it was just, and the foreman who was there was explaining to us that it's unheard of for someone with barely a year of experience is already running a crew. And then we found out a month later, she's now running a van for their service department.
Wow.
This is someone who just started, and she is still an apprentice. She's not even a journeyman yet. But because of that kind of background that she had with Skillpoint, some of those additional skills that she had, and of course her work ethic and her own skills and expertise and her own ability to learn quickly, has enabled her to really advance very, very quickly. Then moving on to some of our other programs, it's a little bit less kind of clear or concise about what types of jobs you might be eligible for. That's not actually true. For nurse aide, you're training to become a certified nursing aide. That's pretty clear. And in that case, we can connect you with certain employers who will then help you go to school for your nursing degree. Some of our employer partners will help give you some tuition assistance to help you kind of continue that pathway toward becoming like an LVN or an RN or something like that.
So important. That's great.
Yeah. For the HVAC program, that one kind of has the broadest reach in terms of the different types of options somebody might have for a job. So for instance, you finish our HVAC program and you have your EPA exam, you could go to work for a contractor, somebody who's doing construction, like mechanical construction, installing the venting and the piping in a new building. You might also go and work for a large industrial facility doing maintenance on their existing work. So for instance, we had a graduate who is currently working at National Instruments at their local large campus. And he's actually running a crew of maintenance techs. And their job is to just basically make sure everything keeps working at the plant, make sure that the AC is on, make sure that the drains and the pipes are still working. With our HVAC program, you can also go into property management. You could also go work for a apartment complex and be that person who's fixing residents' AC, and you might get to do a little bit more. You might get to do some carpentry and some electrical work and some plumbing, and kind of put all of your, this is really great for someone who's got a background that is kind of broader in terms of just really a lot of hands-on skills. And so we've had a lot of success of getting people into property management companies,
Mhm.
where then they can move all over town, all over the state, and in some cases all over the country with these companies. I was meeting with a woman from one of our employer partners there at Graystar was the name of the company.
Mhm.
And literally, as I was sitting in her office, she was helping a local employee who was a Skillpoint grad transfer to Seattle. So she had
Oh,
decided
wow.
she wanted to move, to Seattle, and why wouldn't you? It's a wonderful city. And because of the fact that she was working in this, large company with properties all over the country, she was able to make that transition.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. And so that one, the HVAC program, has a lot of flexibility. And so that one really works for someone who's like, maybe I don't know if I want to be an electrician. I don't know if I want to be a plumber. I kind of want to just do a little bit of everything. We'll recommend the HVAC program because it really is a more broader skill set that you get from that.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of property management and groundskeeper maintenance positions here in Austin because there's a lot of apartments.
And it's growing. Yeah, they're building new apartments and new communities all the time, and so they definitely have a need, and it's a persistent, consistent need where they come to us all the time asking, "Hey, do you have any folks that we can hire?" And of course, the construction is booming too, and so if you have that HVAC background, you're a really good fit for new construction as well. And same with plumbing and electricity and electrical. The new construction is one of our fastest growing industries right now, as you guys know.
Yeah. And so I know people ask this question all the time, or money talks really. So out of these programs, which one do you think has the best, earnings once you've finished this program?
I guess it depends on whether you're talking about initial earnings of what you might expect to make right after training or long term. So right after training, I would say the one with the highest average wage for a new graduate would be the HVAC program. So some of our graduates, they'll make $18 or $20 an hour directly out of training. And then, with the ability to advance and grow from there. With the plumbing and electrical programs, those are going to be a little bit lower starting wages because you're talking about a structured apprenticeship model where there is kind of a baseline across the area in that industry for what a first year, what they call green apprentice is going to make. And of course, you have the choice between joining a union and earning that union wage scale, which there's no flexibility in that, or joining an open shop contractor where there's a little bit more flexibility in your wage, but it's still not going to be over a certain amount. So for instance, somebody who comes out of our pre-apprentice electrical program is probably looking at making $14 or $15 an hour as they start, with increases every 6 months or so, depending on their performance, depending on their attendance. And then of course with those jobs, a lot of times you'll be sponsored into an apprenticeship school, and then sometimes your performance in that apprenticeship school will directly impact your wages.
Right.
And so if you're earning straight A's, they might decide to give you a little bit more. Some of our plumbers graduates from the last few classes have made $18 an hour straight out of school with a local open shop, so non-union contractor who has an on-the-job program, who actually just started at TD Industries. They just started an apprenticeship program.
Oh, wow.
And they're starting their wage, their initial wage at $18 an hour. So if you can imagine, they're starting at 18. After 2 years of apprenticeship, you're easily making over $20 an hour, plus you're earning and growing and building your career. Long term though, in terms of average wages for somebody who's been in the trade for a long time, plumbers really seem to make the most money when you look at the data. It looks, an average wage for a plumber is close to $60,000 a year. Of course, you imagine there's those that make a lot more than that because we're talking about averages. A nurse aide is going to be probably our lowest wage coming straight out of school. Right now, because of our current health situation, a lot of long-term care facilities and nursing homes are paying up to $20 an hour.
Wow.
They're just having a hard time finding people who want to work in a setting where they're probably going to be exposed to the virus.
Right.
So there's a little bit of a hazard pay element to it. But a typical wage for a nurse aide graduate is going to be somewhere around $12 an hour. Of course, you'll have the opportunity to get advances with your facility. And then with our advanced manufacturing, that's going to be a wider range depending on the company that you go to. And we're seeing anything from about $15 to $20 an hour as a starting wage for that. So I don't know if we've mentioned this yet, but our programs are completely no cost to our students.
No, we haven't, but that's good to know.
Yeah. So we're grant funded. So we have public and private funding that we get from partners like Workforce Solutions and TWC, the City of Austin, Travis County, various foundations, and local companies that help us keep the lights on and provide the training. So we don't require students to pay anything. What we do require students to do is invest their time.
Right.
That's the real part that's the investment that students make, because we're talking about, again, full-time rapid training where you can work while you're in training, but it's really hard because we're asking you to give us, about 40 hours a week for 4 to sometimes up to 7 weeks at a time. And so that is the commitment that we ask from our students. And we don't want to ask our students to make that commitment if we're not going to be able to provide them with some type of rewarding career pathway afterward.
That is super great. And that actually brings me to another question. So you say it's no cost to your students. You're asking for a time commitment, which 4 to 7 weeks definitely is an investment for your future. And it does require a lot of commitment, but who qualifies for this program? You said it's no cost, but what do I need to bring to Skillpoint Alliance to qualify?
Sure. Yeah, so we're able to provide that free training to individuals who meet a certain eligibility criteria. And what that is low income. And that kind of changes based on what funding we're talking about. But it's basically 200% of the federal poverty income guidelines. And so we'll help someone figure out how much do you make per month in your household. So if you're part of a couple, if you're married, then the household's income has to be calculated. If you're a graduating senior of high school, if you're living with your parents, sometimes we have to count your parents, sometimes we don't. We'll work with you to figure that out. But it's basically 200% of whatever that federal poverty guideline is for the size of your household. You have to be a resident of Texas. In some cases, a resident of Travis County or Williamson or Hayes or Bastrop or some of the surrounding areas, basically Central Texas resident. You have to be authorized to work in the United States. Obviously, we're a workforce development organization, and the goal is to get you to work. And so we have to be able to certify that you can work. And that's pretty much it. We do typically like for someone to have a high school diploma or a GED. It's not a requirement, so to speak, but our classes are fast-paced, and there is, especially in our electrical program, there's a lot of math. And so we do want to make sure that someone is going to be able to kind of keep up with the content and the pace of the program. And so we find that someone who's graduated from high school or has a GED is going to be someone who's a little bit more equipped to do that. We will waive that at times, depending on the class. It's also a barrier to employment if you don't have a high school diploma or GED. Right. There are some employers that will hire you without it, but not as many, obviously, as those who will require that. And so we do typically look for that. We have an assessment that we will ask some students to take, which is basically a general education assessment to kind of figure out where your education level is. It's English and math. And so what we'll ask for an applicant to bring or to provide is a driver's license or state issued identification card, a social security card or birth certificate, high school diploma, GED or transcript, something like that, and some type of proof of income, so pay stubs, or a benefits letter, like if an applicant is receiving benefits like SNAP or TANF, we'll ask for a letter that shows what they're getting. And then a proof of residence, so a bill, even a letter signed by a roommate or a landlord or something that just shows that, hey, yeah, you are living in this area, so that we know that you're eligible for our funding. And that's basically it.
Okay, so my last question is, so how can someone get started? And with everything going on right now, if that's not possible, what other steps can they take?
Sure. So the best way to get started with us is to go to our website. And that's www.skillpointalliance.org. You can apply there. That's kind of our whole process starts with an online application. So you go to our website and you apply, you choose which program you're interested in or which programs you're interested in. You can choose them all if you want. And then the next step is one of our admissions coordinators will contact you and they'll talk to you about dates, when the next ones are starting, what the requirements are, and they'll talk a little bit about whether you're a good fit for that particular program, whether it seems like you might be eligible. And then they'll schedule a kind of more in-depth, what we call interview session, enrollment interview. And then at that time is when we'll get in-depth on, okay, here's what the program looks like, here's when it's starting, can you commit to this? Are you, do you have some of the kind of baseline competencies and interests and commitment to do this type of program? And then we'll collect your documents, make sure you're eligible, and then you start. Our website is also a really great resource to see what upcoming dates are. So we keep our front page of our website has a listing of all our programs, and it has the current dates for when the next ones are starting. And if we don't know when the next one is starting, it'll just say TBD. So we don't follow any kind of semester or school schedules. We run our programs kind of back to back throughout the year based on, scheduling, instructor availability, and also demand, student demand. If we know that our electrical program tends to be the one that is most applied for. And so we run that one. Last year we did 7 classes. The year before we did 8. This year we're just about to start our 3rd. Plumbing will do a little bit less because even though it pays the most, people don't apply for it as often.
Right.
We're hoping that will change, and that's why I want to get the word out and say, hey, plumbing is a great career. You don't always have to mess with poop. Sometimes you do. Nature of plumbing, but there's a lot of
fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But there's a lot of new construction. There's things like that where there's no human waste involved at all. But that's one that we don't run as often because we just don't get as many applications for it. Nurse aid also is a very high demand. We get lots of nurse aid classes. We ran, I think, 6 classes last year for nurse aid. And like I said, they'll just go back to back with a couple weeks in between each one so our instructors can stay sane, get the recovery and rest that they need in between. And so, like I said, you can go to our website, our front page, to see what the next dates are. And you can apply for a class at any time. So that is the way to start. And you asked, kind of what should someone do if they're not ready to start right now, but maybe, future classes. The best way to do that is to just make an application because it gets you into our system. It gets you into our applicant database. And then our admissions coordinators, they will contact you and you can tell them, hey, I'm not really ready to start next week. Right. But we can go ahead and say, okay, well, what about the next one? Yeah. Can I call you when we're recruiting for the next class? And you'll be on that list. And so you can kind of get in the pipeline that way.
Cool. Yeah, and I highly recommend those who are watching this video to call obviously apply on their website, but talk to an admissions counselor, ask questions that we may not have addressed today because there may be some other opportunities that we didn't really address, or even just resources that will help you be successful in this program that Skillpoint's offering, and then successfully transition into an in-demand career in Austin, Round Rock area. My last question, just for the sake of, I guess, just the current situation here, you know, globally with the pandemic, is what is Skillpoint doing now to prioritize participant safety, and what do your trainings look like, and will that change in the near future?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as I mentioned, currently we are doing some online training. Some of our classes are fully online, and that's our pre-apprentice electrical class and the CPT for advanced manufacturing. Those two classes are 100% fully online. And we've even, our instructors are so great about figuring out really creative ways to do the hands-on skills through Zoom, like through a platform where the student can just show what they're doing, and then the instructor can see it, and then they can, give feedback that way. So those are 100% online. Then that, obviously helps to mitigate any, person-to-person contact. With our plumbing and HVAC and nurse aid classes, those are what we're calling hybrid right now. So those are mostly online. They're going to start out online, fully online through Zoom or some other online platform. And then there will be small group in-person sessions, because for those programs, we just felt that there are certain types of skills, hands-on skills, that are part of those classes that need to be done in person with the instructor.
Right.
What we've done there is we're scheduling, individual one-on-one time slots for the instructor to meet with the students, so that we can kind of really minimize the number of people who are interacting physically in a space. And of course, whenever there's more than just the instructor and one other person in a space, we're enforcing, social distancing, keeping all of our desks and tables 6 feet apart. We're also providing masks and gloves for those students who don't have it, and sanitizing our facilities every day to make sure that obviously we can do what we can to keep people safe. And so that's kind of what we're doing online, and then some hybrid. And then when we do have to be in person, we're just taking as many, steps that the local regulations require to make sure that everyone's safe.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like y'all have a good grasp on your training programs, you're prioritizing participant safety, and you have some upcoming programs coming up. I know y'all are currently recruiting. So again, please check out their website. Will you say the website one more time, Weston?
Yes. So just go to skillpointalliance.org. You could also do a Google search for Skillpoint Alliance, and you'll find us, skillpointalliance.org. You can call us at 512-323-6773, and then that will give you the option to connect to an admissions coordinator, as Jessica mentioned, which is really the best way to find out more about the programs. Colby and Regina are the two individuals, and they are just wonderful about asking questions and really just walking a potential applicant through the process, making sure that they understand what they're getting into, what they might need, and all that kind of stuff. The class that we are recruiting for the most right now is our pre-apprentice plumbing class, which actually starts next week on Monday. But we still have openings, and we'd love to get some applicants, even just some people to call and ask about that program. And then after that, we'll having an electrical program starting up on the same day. And then, soon after that, we'll be getting, doing more nurse aid, more CPT, and more HVAC. So we're just always running classes back to back, and we encourage everyone to check us out if it's something that you're interested in.
Yeah, especially high school seniors who have a few weeks on their hands over the summer.
Yeah, it's a great option for summer. Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I didn't mention earlier, if you don't mind, especially for those high school seniors who are thinking about what they want to do, an apprenticeship program oftentimes can provide the same amount of lifetime earnings in a career as a college degree, but the real big difference is no student debt.
Yeah.
Because we obviously our pre-apprentice part is paid for, but then most of the time when you start that apprenticeship program with that local contractor, they're going to sponsor you in that school as well. And so you end up, after 4 or 5 years, just like as if you went to an undergrad, you're going to be a journeyman in your trade, which means you get to have your own truck, your own company truck. You're running a crew. You're making probably upwards of $50,000, $60,000 a year, and you have no student debt. And so that's just I think a really viable option for those folks who are getting ready to leave high school and figure out what they want to do for their career. Do not forget about the trades, because it can be a really good option.
And thank you for mentioning apprenticeship programs again. We are going to link the DOL Apprenticeship Finder at the bottom of this video, because there are a lot of registered apprenticeship programs out there, as you mentioned, and I know you partner with quite a few of them. So if you don't know what an apprenticeship program is, I definitely recommend checking out the link and learning about each of them. Each one is structured different. The wages are structured different. Skillpoint Alliance is a pre-apprenticeship program, so they're going to introduce you to these other registered apprenticeships. So I highly recommend you check them out, because they'll kind of guide you through the process, give you some really great training. Other than that, I think that's all the questions I have. Victoria, do you have any other questions?
No, but thank you so much for taking time out to talk to us. It's awesome. It was very informative. I learned stuff too, so thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys for the opportunity. I really appreciated it, and best of luck.
Yeah, stay safe out there.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks guys.